But when it came back in, Tobias Lauritsen set it up perfectly for Karel Eiting. A first goal for the club since January's loan move from FC Twente. And with his weaker right foot too. His arrival's given them some much-needed experience in midfield, with Arne Verschuren having departed in the opposite direction. Adding experience to Nak at the back is Vandenberg, who was forced to wear a protective mask again here, having had his nose broken again last week. His long throws are a great addition to their set-piece repertoire. This nearly ended in a goal. Only dogged Sparta defending saw off the threat. More by luck than judgment, perhaps. Overall, the home side struggled to create much, though. Sparta happy to sit back and absorb the pressure, and it was Karl Hofkens, the NAC coach, that had more to think about at half-time. Eight minutes after the restart, they almost fell further behind as Sparta created two chances in quick succession. Lauritsen with the first, blocked by a defender in front of the goalkeeper, Daniel Bielica, and then came an even better chance for Eiting from a very similar position, this time on his favoured left foot. He admitted afterwards that this miss would haunt him for a bit. It was one that he really needed to put away to give them breathing space. Instead, it was Nak Breda that struck back, Zawa firing a precise finish inside the post to bring up his second goal of the year, and a first at home since November. His loan from Feyenoord has proved one of their best bits of business in the summer, and now he's got 5 goals in all, as well as being one of their chief providers of assists. However, the hopes of taking all 3 points took a blow when they went down to 10 men with 20 minutes to go. The red card came about after another Sparta break from the pacey Van Bergen. The visitors moving quickly from their low block to burst out when they won the ball. Leo Greimel dived in to try stop him. The Austrian connected instead with the winger's foot. A yellow card was the initial punishment from the referee Serdar Gusubik. But repeated viewing suggested the challenge might be more dangerous than first thought. And the VAR recommended the referee come and have a look. That done, the Austrian was in more trouble, his fate sealed, and NAC would have to play the closing stages without one of their central defenders. Hofkens immediately turned to his bench, bringing on a defensive replacement in Terence Kongolo. Molly Stein, the Sparta coach, left his side as it was, but he had them play more on the front foot. It was one of his earlier changes that came closest to a winning goal. Half-time substitute Mohamed Nasser, whose only previous goal for the club was scored in the middle of September. This one was a brilliant effort from the winger. Perhaps an even better save from Bielica to keep his side level. Greimel carried on watching the game, just about shielded from view. His side put in a resolute display without him, fending off waves of attacks to get a draw over at the line. The final visiting chance came from Jivai Zekiel, another midfielder on loan, who crossed the city from Feyenoord. His hopes of a first senior goal were dashed by Boy Kemper on the line, helping his goalkeeper out. A point wasn't what either coach wanted, but it was also important that neither lost the game. NAC retained a 4-point advantage over the bottom 3, but the 3 sides below them could now all overtake them if they won later in the weekend. Sparta moved level on points with Willem II, but remained in the bottom 3 for now. Heracles were one of those sides sitting just below NAC Breda, and they travelled to Sittard on the back of a 4-2 win over another relegation rival, PEC Zwolle. Fortuna won at RKC the previous week, and their position in 9th put them in the mix for the European playoffs. They almost got an unexpected helping hand when visiting keeper Fabian de Keyser missed this back pass and had to be bailed out. He was fortunate that his swipe at the ball didn't end in an own goal, and he had Justin Hogma on hand to clear the danger. An unfortunate bobble just before the ball reached him seemed to be the culprit. Although they'd been strong on their own turf, Herakles had won just once away from home in the league since September. This and the next 4 on the road were all against sides around them in the table and offered the chance of points, which they needed to stay up. They too threatened in the opening 5 minutes, Juho Talviti going it alone despite decent support, but to no avail. Thomas Bruns didn't get the layoff that he had been hoping for, although they did earn a corner. They mixed up their approach work too, with Damon Mirani's long ball releasing Jasonkamp. No mistake from the keeper at the other end. Matthijs Branderhorst had seen the danger early and headed it off. Five minutes later, though, Fortuna's Alen Alilovic did not see what was coming towards him, and the Croatian playmaker was forced off the pitch as a result. Although, amazingly, there wasn't even a yellow card for Mats Rots. He took a heavy touch and slipped, leading him to stand on Halilovic's leg. Fortuna's number 10 was left with stud marks on his shin, but still there was no sanction despite a VAR check. The challenge was deemed an accident as a result of the slippery and uneven surface, but that did not placate his coach, Danny Bass, who felt it was a sending off. As did Halilovic himself. Alessio de Cruz came on in his place, as the Herakles coach, Owen van der Looy, also tried to apologise. The new man also had his side's final chance of the half from a well-worked free kick. Ryan Fosso sliding it through precisely. De Cruz thwarted by De Keyser. One of many saves that he was forced to produce in the game from then on, but one of the best. The keeper was at it again in the opening quarter of an hour, following the restart, as Fortuna looked to turn the screw and find the opener. De Cruz and Fosso involved again. This time Edouard Michou went close. Pogba again there to help out De Keyser. Just the one goal so far for Michou, a former PSG youngster who joined them in November. But the continued pressure did pay off, with the home side's attacking trio all involved. Christopher Peterson provided the first thrust against one of his former clubs, the Swede's cross, nearly presenting De Cruz with another chance. Instead, it was a ball in from the other side, which led to the breakthrough. Striker Bojan Radulovic had his shirt pulled by Shem Scherperman, causing the referee, Joey Coy, to award a penalty. Much more obvious when seen from this angle. It prevented the Serbian from getting a proper touch on the ball, a telling contribution on his full debut after last month's loan from Huddersfield. Peterson stepped up to deliver the goal, his 7th of the season, with a muted celebration to match. That's his best tally in Dutch football since his final campaign with Herakles in 2019. Although he did hit 7 for Fortuna Düsseldorf 7 years ago. His coach had actually been preparing to take him off for a while. He was waiting for the right moment to do so, and that came shortly after, as Kai Sierhuis and a controlling midfielder Laurent Rosier were brought on. With a quick wave to his family in the stands, the winger departed with his job done. With Herakles not managing a single shot on target all game, it should have been a more comprehensive win for the hosts, and they carved their opponents open here, as Fosso continued to perform well, finding De Cruz just onside. De Keyser doing just as well to keep his side in it. Best of their late chances to secure a more comfortable scoreline perhaps, and perfectly timed from all involved. One goal proved enough in the end to earn back-to-back wins for the 3rd time this season. A boost at the end of a painful week for Baus, who had a dumbbell fall on his finger, hence the large bandage, but he was still his usual demonstrative self. They moved up a place to 8th, although the top 7 clubs do look too far away to catch. A visit to Bouse's old side Groningen comes next. Heracles go to Heerenveen for a second successive away match. PSV were on their worst run since Peter Bos took charge ahead of last season, and their 4-game winless streak was the club's worst since December 2013. Their back-to-back defeats to go-ahead Eagles in League and Cup were bad enough, but the 7-1 home thrashing by Arsenal in the Champions League was a new low. A response was needed against Heerenveen, but Luc de Jong couldn't provide it, despite a golden opportunity. Mats Corlett's challenge on Guus Til saw the ball presented to him. He could only trouble the side netting. Heerenveen ended their own 6-game winless run last week with a 3-1 success at home to AZ, a first since the departure of coach Robin van Persie. And they were one of only 2 sides to beat PSV in the first half of the season, although they hadn't won here in the last 15 attempts. The strategy seemed to be to hit them on the break, and they held firm at one end for the first 40 minutes while occasionally threatening at the other. Ilyas Sabawi on the end of this. With half an hour gone, it seemed PSV had found a way through. De Jong heading down for Til, but the referee disallowed the goal for a foul by PSV's number 9, which did seem a little harsh, and left him without a goal for 10 straight home matches, the longest such drought of his career. Their downturn in form has allowed Ajax to erode the lead at the top and establish an 8-point advantage of their own. But with 10 games to go, hope still remains, and PSV have certainly not conceded their title. They took the lead shortly before half-time, with a well-constructed move which harked back to happier times at the start of the season. Olivier Boscali was the one finding Til on the right. And his first-time cross was put away by Ismail Sabari. A very welcome side for supporters who've seen their season implode in recent weeks. Bos was no doubt happy too, having said he and his staff were doing everything and trying everything to drag the team out of their slump. But there was also still a wariness. PSV had been ahead in each of their previous 4 matches, only to then fail to win any of them. They were quickly out of the blocks in the second period and had a big chance to extend the lead. Just over a minute in, De Jong and Zabari combining to set up Til. The midfielder back playing with a smile on his face. And he was a key component for the side, but surprisingly failed to take his biggest chance. Andries Noppert performing well. The big keeper was kept on his toes much more in the second half by PSV's attacking talent. Noah Lang, the next to have a go. With Mickey van der Hart absent again due to a hand injury, the former Dutch international will have his chance to stake a claim for a longer spell between the posts. Bos said the end result didn't do justice to their performance, but they were able to fashion a second goal during this dominant spell, which saw the confidence increase again. Patient build-up and good movement off the ball were key, with Richie Ledesma, Ivan Perisic and Jordi Schouten all involved, along with Til, who finished it off. His first in the league since their last victory, back on the 25th of January against NAC Breda. And a 12th goal in all competitions, one short of his best ever tally for the club. Midway through the second period, there was another feel-good moment when Serginho Dest made his comeback after 10 months out. A cruciate knee ligament injury in April of last year ruled him out of their run-in, and it's been a long road back to fitness for the US international. He had to wait a moment or two longer here too as Jan Bakayoko replaced Lang. He then exchanged places with his US teammate Ledesma. And he said that he finally felt like a footballer again. However, there was no clean sheet to go with his comeback, as Levi Smans made the closing stages more nervy than expected, nutmegging Boscali and bagging himself an impressive individual goal. One which gave the Frisian side hope of a late rally and left Bos frustrated at their inability to build a more significant lead. Walter Benitez is one of only 2 goalkeepers in Europe's top 10 leagues, that have conceded more goals than they've made saves this year. His shot, too good for him. De Jong then had one final chance to end his long wait for a goal on home turf. Perisic picking him out in his usual spot at the far post, but it wasn't to be his day. Till had saved up enough energy for one final burst at the end of stoppage time. A chance to earn himself a second goal, but although he got there at the right moment, the magic moment eluded him this time. But PSV still got their much-needed win, reducing the gap on Ajax to 5 points, with the leaders playing a day later. Heerenveen's first away game under the temporary stewardship of Henk Brugge ended in defeat. They've won only twice away in the league all season. Next for PSV comes the return with Arsenal in London and then a visit to second bottom RKC. Heerenveen host Heracles. Willem II were hoping to avoid finishing this round inside the bottom three. But with high-flying Utrecht visiting Tilburg, they knew they'd be likely in for a tough afternoon. So they brought some intensity to the opening stages in a bid to record their first win of 2025 after 7 games without one. Last week's 4-0 loss to Sparta Rotterdam had stung, and their coach Peter Maas changed his formation to begin with 2 strikers, Jeremy Bokila deployed alongside Kian Vassen. It was actually a defender that had their first chance, and a former Utrecht one too. Tommy Santiago at the near post from Mikael Turpin's cross. The centre-half had spent his entire career in the cathedral city before moving to Willem II ahead of last season. Utrecht arrived here having halted their own surprise 6-game winless streak with last week's narrow victory over NAC Breda. That pushed them back into the top 3, as Feyenoord, AZ and FC Twente all failed to take 3 points. But they fell behind from a free kick, Mike van der Hoorn sending Bokila over. Turpin got himself an assist this time, delivering the ball to the far post, where Boris Lambert pounced. A second goal for the Belgian midfielder, who's played a much bigger part since the turn of the year. Although this was also his first start in 3 weeks. A tidy finish from a tight angle too. Maas had them riding high in the first half of the campaign, having got them back up from the first division. They were one of the early surprise packages, but their fortunes faded as winter set in, and they'd won only twice since mid-November. 6 minutes after the goal, Van der Hoorn and Bokila came together again, with the same result, a free kick for the home side. This time, Vassen took it on, bringing the save of the game from Vasilis Barkas. No goal for the Belgian striker since the end of November either. With Ronald Frans van Zomeren looking on, Utrecht laboured a bit in front of goal. They too had begun with 2 strikers, David Min and Sébastien Haller, but neither produced much of note before the break. This header was the first time that Haller managed to threaten, after what his coach Ron Jans called a mediocre week of training. So Jans intervened, bringing on forwards Noah Ohio and Adrian Blake. Jens Toornstra and Min were the ones making way. And less than 2 minutes later, they were level with Blake involved in the build-up. He was the one playing the ball from here out to the left, from where Soufiane El Karouani crossed for Haller to score his first Eredivisie goal back at the club. It was also his 100th goal contribution in the Eredivisie, a 74th goal to go with his 26 assists. A productive decision from the man in charge, whose changes also influenced what followed in the remainder of the game. There was more bite and purpose about the visitors from this point. Ohio revealed afterwards that was due to some angry words from the coach during the break. Everyone upped their game, with Zidane Iqbal forcing his way through for a shot. It also made the contest a more end-to-end affair, with the home side also coming close. This one involved both wing-backs Runar Sigurðsson providing the cross from one side, Turpan arriving at the other, only for Barkas to spring into action again. The Greek's stature enabling him to turn it over the top. As impressive as that was, the moment of the match belonged to Ohio, the former Manchester City youngster. He's only 22, but already at his 7th club, where he's mostly been used as an impact substitute. Starting games is the next aim, something he's done only 3 times and not since early November. But if he can do more of that, those starts will come. One of the goals of the weekend. It kicked off a busy 10-minute spell featuring 3 of them. Next up came a much closer range effort from Sigurðsson as Willem II hit back. Looking to grab the point which would keep them above Sparta and out of the relegation zone. Bokila with the preparatory work. Blake, the last man who lost the fullback's run. Barkas looked like he felt he should have kept it out. The first Eredivisie goal for the Iceland international, but there was one more twist to come. Blake had already come to Utrecht's rescue once. His first 2 goals came late on against Go Ahead Eagles in December, turning a 3-1 deficit into a 3-3 draw. Here, he delivered them all 3 points with his 3rd league goal. Another precise finish, and this time into the bottom corner. With AZ and Feyenoord not in action this weekend, this increased Utrecht's advantage in the table. Jantz's old side Twente were now the ones on their heels. Back-to-back home games come next against NAC and another of Jantz's former clubs, Heerenveen. Willem II will visit Go Ahead Eagles. After a narrow loss to Frankfurt in the Europa League, Ajax's next outing was at PEC Zwolle, a side that hadn't beaten them since August 2014. The Eredivisie leaders had won on the last 8 visits here too, but they were nearly caught cold 90 seconds in. David Vandenberg slamming the ball in, but a foul on Yuri Baas seconds before saw the goal disallowed. Filip Krastev guilty of a little trip which cleared the way. Francesco Farioli made 3 changes, with Mateus in goal for the injured Remco Pasveer. Jordan Henderson and Bertrand Traoré both rested. Davy Klaassen was absent with his wife about to give birth. Farioli had warned his side about Zwolle's pressing and their physical approach, something Brian Brobby experienced early on. The striker was sandwiched here between Oliver Ertsen and Simon Graves, suffering a bang on his knee. Ajax already looking a little bit light up front, with Wout Weghorst not yet ready to return from injury. And after treatment, Brobby tried but failed to continue, lasting just 6 minutes more. Their opponents, though, weren't about to simply pop the ball out of play and slow their own progress, so they carried on for a while. But the number 9 is now a major doubt for this week's return game with Frankfurt in Germany, and he soon made way for Traoré. The club are still assessing how bad the injury is and whether he can play any part in Europe. They're also hoping UEFA will allow them to register Mateus, who's not currently in their Europa League squad, having joined them on loan from Braga on deadline day last month. The Brazilian keeper got away with this one. Ertsen unable to force the dropped ball in. Neither side played with any real tempo in the first half, and there were only occasional flashes of inspiration. In that regard, it was a similar display from Ajax to their narrow win over Almere City a week previously. Mika Hodz had this shot, with Jorel Hato unable to properly follow up. The visitors' best chance of the half fell to Kian Fitzjim after a storming run from Anton Gay. Steven Berghaus picked him out, but it was a weak effort. Zwolle also threatened late on in the half. They'd recorded the highest shot conversion rate in the league so far this year, but Ryan Thomas also didn't get the power that he needed, and then failed to cross quickly enough for the unmarked Anwar El Azouzi. Both keepers were in decent form though, so the half ended goalless. Ajax with one more surge forward. Berghuis finding Fitzjim again. Jasper Schendelaar saved his side twice. Ajax's breakthrough arrived 11 minutes after the restart via the penalty spot, a decision which not everyone agreed with. Kenneth Taylor had the initial shot, a man who's averaged a goal every other game since the end of January. The shot looked to be heading in too before it hit the hand of Anselmo Garcia McNulty. The referee, Bas Nijhuis, initially didn't want to know, until he was called over to the screen by VAR Alex Boss. While McNulty admitted it was the right call, his coach, Johnny Jansen, said it wasn't. The referee sided with Ajax and the Irish defender, although he looked reluctant to give it. Taylor has emerged as the first choice penalty taker, and once again the midfielder delivered, as he had in Europe against Union Saint-Gilloise last month. When it was tight against Almere City, he also found the only goal. And he did the same here, an eighth of the season, matching the tally he achieved 2 years ago, and still with time left to better that. But the goal still didn't make it comfortable for Ajax, and Jyoti Mokio got his pocket picked here by Nick Vichtinger, which allowed Vondenberg to have another go. As the game wore on, it seemed likely that Ajax would take it, and they had the chances to make the scoreline reflect that. Berghuis had his eye in the corner, only for Schendelaar to deftly deflect the ball away. He has only one goal from 17 league appearances this season and one other from 13 in Europe. Oliver Edvardsen has as many as that already, and he only joined the club at the end of January. He could have had another one here too. Those misses were put into sharp focus when Zwolle should have equalised in stoppage time. Thomas Boutink was put clean through, but the presence of Mateus was just enough to deny him a first goal of his second spell at the club. A lucky let-off for the leaders, who stretched their lead instead back to 8 points with 9 games to go. It was their 10th straight Eredivisie win. The last 5 have also been accompanied by a clean sheet. Their response was to go up the other end and try and make sure of a second goal, which they thought they'd done with the last kick of the game. A tight call against Traoré, but play continued and the winger was denied by the post. Graves then managed to lose the ball attempting to bring it out, and this time Traoré succeeded, although he was offside when Berghuis picked him out. It is turning into a great debut season for Farioli. Only 5 coaches have ever had a higher points tally after 25 games of their first Eredivisie campaign. Ajax themselves have only once this century had more points at this stage of the season than they do now. For Janssen, the relegation battle looms large. His side are just a point above the bottom 3 and face Sparta next, the side just below them. After a week in which they beat PSV twice, Go Ahead Eagles travelled to NAC, almost scoring their fastest goal of the season. Joris Kramer denied after 37 seconds. It's been a brilliant debut season for Paul Simonis too, who stepped up from his role as assistant when René Hake left for Manchester United. His players look like they're brimming with confidence, sitting comfortably in 7th and on the cusp of the top 6, having also reached the cup final. No wonder Enric Janzana felt like trying that. They'd lost only 2 of the last 14, winning 10 of them. NAC, on the other hand, had alternated between draws and defeats in their last 5 after winning the opening 2 of the year, and they struggled to mount much resistance as the Eagles dominated, Milan Smit striking the post after good work from Mathis Soré. A pattern was already developing, wherein NSA sat back and either the frame of the goal or keeper Robin Roofs kept the visitors out. This time, their number one produced two fine stops in quick succession. First, from Mats Dyle, who drifted into the box unnoticed. Next, from the head of Oliver Antman, who seems to be getting better and better this season. After assisting a goal as they knocked PSV out in the cup, the Finn then scored twice in last weekend's win over the champions and proved integral to the result here too. Both crosses coming from Victor Edvards. And then, 5 minutes before half-time, they mixed the approach up a little and the first goal arrived. This time a long ball found Antman, and he produced his 10th assist of the season, setting up Dean James. A second Eredivisie goal for the fullback, whose first also came against NSA in December's 5-0 win. This time, Roofs was left just too exposed. A deserved half-time lead for the visitors, who had barely been troubled at the other end. It was announced last week coach Roger Meijer would leave the home side at the end of the season. Mark van Bommel is one of the names they're going after as his successor. From one combative midfielder to another, Lasse Schöne, who played against van Bommel many times. The 38-year-old hasn't lost the fire, but he reacted so angrily to the perceived injustice of a yellow card for that challenge that he got himself sent off. Referee Sander van Eyck had clearly had enough of his aggressive response. It did seem Schöne had a point about Dyle's reaction to this tussle, which was over the top. But so was his own behaviour, which only plunged his team deeper into trouble. As he departed, Sonja Hansen was introduced immediately afterwards, and they also came close to an equaliser. Dirk Propper hitting the crossbar here. But midway through the half, their prospects for a comeback looked dim as Smith doubled the Eagles' lead. Just a second goal for the club after his summer move from First Division Cambuur. Antman again with the assist. Extending his lead as the man with the most from open play in the Eredivisie. However, 3 minutes later, Brian Pereira handed NSA a lifeline with a shot that went in off the boot of James. One fullback using the other to score, although the goal went to the NSA right-back, becoming his first ever. Not that James himself wanted it. And for a few minutes at least, it seemed that the visitors' wastefulness might come back to haunt them. However, Antman put pay to that, with NSA unable to clear their lines. Edvardsson providing the assist this time for the Finn to lash one into the corner. He now has 5 goals and 11 assists. Only the Eredivisie's top scorer, Sem Stein, has been involved in more goals. The €1.5 million that they paid Danish side Nordsjælland for him in the summer now looks excellent business, and Simonis admitted that they're unlikely to be able to keep hold of him this summer. NSA did rally themselves for one last push late on, and Kento Shogai made it 3-2 in stoppage time, having also become the first player ever for the club to make his first 16 Eredivisie appearances as a substitute. Tom Aouya providing the cross. NSA have won only once at home though since the 3rd of November. And this result dropped them to 13th, 2 points above the relegation zone. Worryingly, their next two are against Utrecht and AZ. The Eagles will entertain Willem II. With Feyenoord and AZ choosing to have their games postponed to focus on European commitments, Twente's match with Almere City is the final one this week. Dan Rots, the player looking for a flying start for the home side. And a win for Twente would see them move above Feyenoord and into fourth. The Eredivisie's bottom side did their best to knock the host out of their stride. Vasilios Sagaritis did it quite literally on Rots to earn the game's first booking. Their robust approach should help contain and restrict Ajax for much of last week's encounter, and it was a similar situation here, as they attempted to pick up just their fourth win of the season and draw level with EKC above them. However, they were undone by Sem Stein, who ended up in the back of the net, along with the ball, after he converted Bart van Rooij's cross. The 20th goal of the season for the midfielder. He was being watched on, as ever, by his dad, the Sparta coach Maurice. Having looked boxed in, it was the perfect switch from defender Gustav Lagerbilke which launched the attack down the other side. Stein is now 8 goals ahead of Troy Parrott, his closest challenger in the race for the Golden Boot. And he's the first midfielder to hit 20 goals in the Eredivisie since Jari Litmanen 31 years ago. Almere City are made of sterner stuff under current coach Jurgen Reisdijk than they were under his predecessor Hedvigus Maduro, and they ran both Feyenoord and Ajax close in the previous two outings. Charles Brim nearly provided the perfect response here too. Only some cat-like reactions from Lars Unnestor kept the ball out. They'd also beaten Utrecht in their other recent outing against a side in the top 5, and although Stein got another decent chance here, keeper Norden Bakker was right behind it. Reisdijk, along with his striker Thomas Robinet, said they were fed up of getting compliments for their performance every week and would rather have points. But in order to get those, they have to start taking chances when they come. They couldn't do that here again. Cornelius Hansen hitting his against Lagerbilke. They'd taken points from 3 of their 4 away games since the turn of the year. Draws at Groningen and NAC adding to that success in Utrecht. But it was the same story from the resulting corner as they ended the half on the up. Brim heading wide after the ball was recycled. As a team, they found the net only 15 times, 5 fewer than Stein on his own. And along with EKC, they have the Eredivisie's joint leakiest defence. All the more reason why they need to significantly increase their goal production, which didn't happen here, despite creating chances against the division's 5th best defence. Junior Cadil's pace and Brim's dummy saw the ball roll to Hansen. Bas Kuipers in the way this time. There was a 3rd consecutive league start for Taylor Booth, the winger who joined Twente from Utrecht in January. The US international saw more of the ball after the break, with Mace Hilgers nearly capitalising here on his 100th Eredivisie appearance, but Bakker had a very good game. And wherever Stein drifted, then usually there was defensive cover too. Twente's second chance in a minute came from another of his runs and from a long ball, but there was James Lawrence to snuff out the danger. An impressive passage of play from the home side. But just as against Ajax last week, Almere City weren't prepared to be overrun. True enough, they did leave too many spaces for the home side's attacking players to exploit, but like their opponents, Twente's finishing wasn't up to scratch. Hard to fault Stein, given his achievements so far this season. This was right within his usual range, though. The home fans also took time to pay tribute to their former attacking midfielder, Kik van der Waal, who'd announced his retirement after working for the club for many years, calling him the only good thing Rotterdam's ever produced. One of the club's current attacking midfielders, Arne Verschuren, came on to replace Booth just past the hour, but was then injured within seconds by Cadil, who lost his balance going into this challenge. It was a painful one, on the Belgian's knee and could also have been a very dangerous one as his leg got trapped. Kadil picked up a caution. Verschuren went off as a precaution. But the game remained in the balance right until the end. Carapace unable to give the home side breathing space with this speculative long-range effort. Just before the end of normal time, those players observing Ramadan, including substitute Nassi Unufar, were able to break their fast. His side held out for 7 minutes of stoppage time to extend their unbeaten league run to 6 matches. They've lost only 1 of their last 10 in all competitions, the defeat to Bodo Glimt, which eliminated them from the Europa League. But they're on track for a return to Europe via their league position. This put them 4th and 3 points behind Utrecht, who are 3rd. Feyenoord, 2 points back, have played a game less and are their next opponents. Twente coach Josef Austin called the display sloppy, but he was grateful for the points. With the top 4 all winning, Ajax are 1 game closer to snatching the title back off PSV. Feyenoord and RZ in 5th and 6th will play their games in hand at the start of next month. It was a bad week at the other end of the table with 5 of the bottom 7 clubs losing. So Ajax's lead is 8 points. They play PSV at the end of the month and RZ next. Everyone in the bottom half still looks at risk of being drawn into a relegation battle. That's all for this week. We're back next time. Until then, from me, Jonathan Beck, it's goodbye.